Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up. So for March I read 6 books, which is decent, I think, for me. It's not as good as I would have liked, but a lot of the books that I read were kind of lengthy. So the first book that I read was Opposition by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and this is the final book in the Lux series. As you can see, I absolutely adored this book. I love this series wholeheartedly, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. If you like alien, paranormal romance type books, then I think that you will really like the Lux series. I highly recommend it. The next book that I read, I actually checked out from the library, and that is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. I went into this book knowing not too much about it, and in the beginning of the book, I loved it. It was so good. It was so different from anything that I had ever read before. I'm not that familiar with Brandon Sanderson's work. I've only read The Rhythmatist by him before I read this one, so it was kind of my attempt to read more of his stuff. So I really did like it in the beginning, as I said, but towards the middle and the end, it just drug on and on and on, and I could not get into it anymore. One word to describe it for me would be that it was just boring. So because of that, I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5 stars, although towards the end I wasn't that big of a fan anymore. The next book that I read is actually an audiobook, and it is Forgive Me, Leonard Peacock by Matthew Quick. I have not read any other books by Matthew Quick, and I've heard a lot of good things about this one, so I figured I'd give it a shot, and for some reason I wanted to listen to it on audiobook, which turned out great. The narrator for the audiobook is fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. If you're into audiobooks, I would recommend this one for audiobook because it's so well done. It just kind of blew me away, and Matthew Quick's writing is really, really good, and if you're into like psychological aspects in stories, I think that you will really enjoy him as a writer. The next book that I read this month is Talon by Julie Kagawa, and I loved this book. It was so good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This is like a book mainly about dragons and people that go into the human world that can shift back into dragons and things like that. I won't go into too much detail about it because going into it kind of blindly, it made it even better for me. If you're interested in reading something about dragons, which is not that common, I don't think, then I would recommend this one because I've never read anything like this before and it's so good. And I know that the sequel, Rogue, is coming out very, very soon. The next book that I read this month is This Star Won't Go Out by Esther Earl, and oh my gosh, this book is so heartbreakingly good. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I've had this book for a little while and I wasn't I don't know, for some reason I kept putting it off, probably because of the premise around it and how sad it is. This is a nonfiction book about this girl, Esther Earl, and she is diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and it's got like her journal entries and pictures and things. Towards the end of her life, she also had a YouTube channel, and it's still active, so you can actually go on her channel and watch some of the quirky videos that she put together. But this book was just really inspiring and really heartwarming and sad at the same time, but so good. If you like John Green and David Levithan and things like that, I think you'll like this book. You know, it touches a lot of sensitive topics, so if you are not that interested in reading about cancer, this book's probably not for you because it's basically all that it's about. But I loved it so, so much, and I definitely recommend this. And the last book that I read this month is Burned by Karen Marie Moning, and this is the 7th book in the Fever series, and I love this book as well. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This month was just a great reading month for me. This book was a little bit long, and some parts kind of drug a little bit, but I'm such a fan of this series that I couldn't give it anything other than a 5 out of 5 stars. It's just so good. As I've said in many of my other videos, if you haven't checked out this series, I highly recommend it. It's like sci-fi, paranormal, romance. It's got everything in it, and it's so good, and it has a really well-developed story, a really well-developed world, so if you're into that kind of thing, I would definitely pick this one up. I know that some of the books in this series are kind of difficult to find now, especially in hardcover, so you might have better luck finding it in like a mass market paperback or on your Kindle or Nook. But if you're like me and you fan over this series so much, then you go out and try to hunt down the hardcovers, which I thankfully was able to do. And just to give you a little teaser without actually spoiling anything, the back of it says, "When you fight evil every day, you face a choice. Be defeated by the limits of your own morality or summon a beast in yourself that obeys none." It's so good. So good. So these are all the books that I read this month, not including the one I got from the library and the audiobook. I think this was a very successful reading month for me. Of course, I strayed from my TBR because I always stray from my TBR, but I did happen to knock out quite a few that were on that. I think there were a few like Slammed and Point of Retreat and Invaded that I didn't get to. I also didn't really read much of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire just because I was reading these really chunky books and wanted to focus on them. Hopefully next month I will get a lot more accomplished, but with my class starting, things are slowing down for me as far as reading, but we'll see what I can do. So let me know in the comments below what books you read this month, and let me know if you read any of the ones that I've read and what your thoughts were, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!